please hit that subscribe button.
Hey everybody.
Better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody. So it's time for another episode of NHL Remember Him. And today we're going to be talking about longtime NHL defenseman Brian Campbell, who I'm sure many of you remember from his years throughout the league in the 2000s and into the 2010s. Before we start, I just ask that you please hit that like button if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because that really helps out a lot and is very much appreciated. But let's get into it here. Looking at the career of Brian Campbell, he was originally drafted in the 6th round, 156 overall in 1997 by the Buffalo Sabres. Now, this was back pre-2005 lockout, where there was very much a stigma in the NHL against small offensive defensemen. And that's what Brian Campbell was. He was only about 5'11", 190 pounds. That it was not one of the 6'2", 6'3", 210, 220 type defensemen that you saw so much of back in that era of the NHL. So that's probably why he slipped so late in the draft. But the talent was certainly there with Brian Campbell. Size was not. But his skating ability was fantastic. He was very good with the puck. And overall a very, very good offensive-minded two-way defenseman. He went on to play 1,082 games in the NHL, scoring 87 goals, 417 assists for 504 points and a plus 63 rating. He was definitely a steal of a draft pick in the 6th round for Buffalo. He went on, over 1,000 games, over 500 career points, plus player, over 400 career assists. He was just a really, really good defenseman for a long time in the NHL. On top of those numbers, he played another 107 playoff games in his career, scoring 9 goals, 35 assists for 44 playoff points and a plus 4 rating. He was on the 2010 Stanley Cup winning Chicago Blackhawks team, and just overall was a fantastic defenseman for a long time in the league. And he came into the league in 1999 with the Buffalo Sabres a couple years after he was drafted, and played sporadically his first couple seasons, but then after a couple more seasons of kind of being up and down, he found his home in Buffalo, in that Buffalo Sabres lineup, and that's where he really started to take off as a really, really good player. And he played with Buffalo all the way through 2007. And then in the 2007-2008 season, he split that year between the Buffalo Sabres and the San Jose Sharks. He was traded to San Jose at the deadline. He was then a free agent at the end of the year, where he signed with the Chicago Blackhawks. And he played in Chicago from 2008 through 2011, obviously winning the Cup in 2010 with that Chicago team. He then moved on to the Florida Panthers for another pretty decently long stretch from 2011 all the way through 2016 with Florida, and then he played one final season in the NHL back with the Chicago Blackhawks in 2016-17, and then he retired from the league. So obviously we are looking at an almost 20-year career here for Brian Campbell. Very, very good defenseman, long-time defenseman, and really good two-way player. I mean, obviously he was kind of, especially early on, not just early on in his career, throughout most of his career, he was thought of as more of an offensive defenseman, but he certainly could play defense as well. And I would call him, honestly, more of a two-way player, because, he never, was putting up, Erik Karlsson type offensive numbers. He did have a couple of 50-point seasons, and he had some more 40-point seasons on top of that. But he was never putting up like 70 points, 80 points in a year like we've seen from, some real offensive defensemen like an Erik Karlsson or like a Brent Burns. He was always a two-way player. He could play in his own end. He could play in the offensive end. I mean, he racked up assists. He over 1,000 games, he didn't even score 100 goals. He only scored 87 career goals. He had 417 career assists. He racked up assists. Very good puck mover, very good skater, and very good at the outlet pass. That was something with Brian Campbell. He was very good with the outlet pass. So Really, really good passer all around for sure. And, good two-way guy with a long, long career in the NHL. Teams wanted him in their lineup for a reason. He was on quite a few good teams in Buffalo, in Chicago. Florida not so much, but, he was brought in to kind of play a top role in Florida because they needed that veteran guy on the back end there. And, he had some good years there as well. But overall, just a very, very solid career for Brian Campbell. I don't know if he might be most remembered as a Buffalo Sabre or maybe most remembered as a Chicago Blackhawk. I'm not sure. He had really good years with both of those teams. Obviously, Buffalo was early in his career, so if you're younger, you might not necessarily remember him with the Sabres. But and he spent a good amount of time with Chicago, won the Cup with Chicago, so that obviously is certainly remembered there. And then he spent a while in Florida as well. But he was just a really good player everywhere he went. Everywhere he went, he was a really good player and a guy that teams wanted. And there was a reason that those teams kept Campbell in the lineup for so long, and there's a reason they wanted Campbell. And he was just a really, really solid defenseman. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Brian Campbell, longtime NHL defenseman, over 1,000 games, over 500 career points, over 100 playoff games, and a Stanley Cup winner with the Chicago Blackhawks in 2010. Very, very good NHL career, almost 20 years, and a very, very solid NHL defenseman. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.